Continuing on with part 2 of the video, because my phone storage ran out, talking about suicide and whether it's selfish or not. Just moving down this article, some of the things that make it easier to commit suicide are access to highly lethal means during a crisis, such as firearms, or the availability and awareness of crisis supports to delay action. So in other words, you can reach out to the Samaritans and get help that way. Why does reframing suicide as something different from a choice matter? Well, it is a choice, so it does matter. It matters because those struggling with thoughts of suicide need all of us to understand that they don't want to be in the place of overwhelming pain. They don't need everybody to understand that. I didn't need anybody to understand. I wanted to understand. It's not, other people aren't going to understand. So good luck with that unless they've been suicidal. So they would typically rather be alive and living without the pain, obviously, and viewing their condition and behaviours as a choice only adds to the burden they already carry. Right. Well, I'd say the burden that they're carrying is that they believe that what they're experiencing isn't down to them. It's not down to their behaviour, or if you believe in karma, their past actions, and now that they're at a point in their life where they're suffering, or whether you believe in God and you're being punished. Whatever it is, it's generally not a good view to be, I'm down on my luck. Take responsibility for where you are, where you're at. If you haven't been a saint in your life and you've done certain things, then in whatever form it comes in, you have to ride that. You have to ride it out, and you have to find ways to keep your head afloat. So it takes practice to empathise with someone who feels like death is a better option. Let me just clarify something again here that makes it clear that this person doesn't know what they're talking about. Firstly, you don't need to practice to empathise. If somebody's in pain that you know and you understand their pain, you will automatically empathise. As long as you're not a psychopath, as long as you're not suffering with schizophrenia or any other mental health condition that impairs your emotional judgment, you will empathise naturally as a human being when somebody else is in pain, if you understand. So this guy has to practice how to do that, apparently. Death is a better option in the moment. One has to be able to refrain from judgment. Well, you're not going to be able to refrain from judgment if you don't understand something. You are going to judge because you don't understand. So if you've got a friend that's suffering with the mental health and you don't understand what that suffering is like, you will make your own idea up in your own mind about what that is. And you're likely to make judgments based on the fact that you don't understand, because you can't empathise. It's impossible for you to empathise with somebody unless you've been there or been in similar circumstances where you've experienced similar levels of suffering to understand how this works. Then you're likely to either label that person's behaviour as something that you don't understand and just admit, yeah, don't get it, or you're going to make judgments based on your understanding, which in these circumstances will be mediocre, and then you'll go, why don't you just do this, or why don't you just do that? Because you'll be drawing on your own experience with little bumps in the road that you've had in your life, and you'll have solutions for those and you'll offer them because that's the best you've got, but it might not cut it. That's the thing. So it can be hard for us to approach such extreme pain with a sense of compassion and curiosity. It's only hard if you don't understand it. We would rather rely on simple explanations like if we had just done this, if the parents had just done a better job, or if he or she didn't get bullied. Suicide is nearly always more complex than that. But because answers are elusive and the trauma and loss remain for many years, we look for clarity. In other words, he doesn't understand what he's talking about. Stigma and discrimination make it less likely that those who stand to benefit from mental health treatment receive it. Too many people blame themselves for feeling depressed. You've got nobody else to blame. If you're depressed, your thinking has led to that depressed state. So you don't, I'm not saying beat yourself up if you're depressed. Like, oh, I've done some. Yeah, what the idea is to take responsibility, to understand that if you are depressed, it's through the type of thinking that you're employing, nobody else. So even if somebody does something bad to you, and I don't mean even as in whatever you might have had done to you isn't something that isn't perceived as bad and hasn't had a great impact, but your response to it is always your response to it. So if you hate that person, then that's your doing. You are hating that person. Not saying it's always easy not to do that, but it is a choice. You have to work through it. So we need to reduce, not increase, the burden on those who struggle with thoughts of suicide. So we need, if somebody's struggling with thoughts of suicide, if they want to get well, they'll be receptive to treatment, or they'll be receptive to getting into conversations with people that they feel that can help them. It can be a friend, it can be a family member, it can be research, it can be through books, as long as whoever wrote the book knows what they're talking about. There are always avenues to help understand what's going on. Let's commit to viewing people in emotional crisis similarly, however you say that, to those with a physical injury, with care, compassion, and a plan for recovery. Right, okay, well, that leads on to something else, which when people talk about that, that's another bugbear I've got when people say, I've seen people saying the same thing about physical and mental health. Well, if you break your leg, you can see that. But when someone's mentally suffering, you can't. Yes, you can. You can tell when someone's depressed. You can tell when a baby wants something. When they cry, when they spit the dummy out, right? They make noises. They look a certain way. If you've got a friend that's not responding very well in conversation, and they're looking down, you ask them what's up. You've identified right there. It's that simple, that there's something going on. You're not yourself. You might frame it as you're not your usual self, or I can tell that something's not right. If you know the person and how they normally behave, you'll see it a mile off if there's something wrong with them. You don't have to have a broken leg and be on a crutch to understand someone's not mentally well. So that's something that I could cover in another video, but I don't think I need to after saying that, to be honest with you. It's that simple. You can tell when somebody's not mentally well. Now, if they hide it, that's another thing. You're not aware of it then, but that's that individual's responsibility. If they want to talk, they'll talk. If they don't want to, they won't. So, is suicidal selfish? Yes. For the reason that if you see yourself as different from somebody else, so your life has no value and everybody else's does, then you're not mentally balanced, right? Because your life is as valuable as the next person's. So there's always a choice. You can ask me to make videos on whatever topic if you're struggling with whatever, anxiety or depression or sleep, or you're taking antidepressants, or your doctors are giving you advice. I'm not saying I'm going to go against what a doctor's saying per se, but I'll certainly be saying things like, well, why don't you challenge them? Because when you go to a doctor and you're prescribed things, you don't challenge them. Everybody that I've spoken to date that's been to a doctor and has been prescribed a drug, they take it willingly, even if it's a trial, without question, because they want help. So I'll leave it there for now. Is suicide selfish? Yes. Steer clear of articles online saying that it isn't. It's got nothing to do with putting more of a burden. If you feel suicidal and you feel that you're a burden to others, you've got to be careful about what you're thinking. If you think you're going to alleviate suffering, then you better hope that there isn't a next life, or God doesn't exist, whichever way you want to frame it. So the Buddha will be life continuity and rebirth, whereas I believe in Christianity it's heaven or hell based on your acts. So if in the Bible it says it's great to take your own life, you're going to go to heaven for it, then you can have a great time. But I would say get help if you need help. Speak to somebody that knows what they're talking about. It's not an option to take your own life. It's as simple as that. It's just going to be leading to more suffering. That's the likely outcome. So I'll leave it there for now. The crux of this video is suicide is 100% a selfish act, and I would urge you not to be going down that route and to value your life as much as you do everybody else's. So till next time, I'll speak to you later.